shared near-death experience happened in July of 1981. I was in love with a woman. Her name was Mary Frances, and she and her son Nolan were in a dreadful car accident. She was killed outright, and Nolan sustained a head wound that was a mortal head wound, and it took about 6 days for him to make his transition. Nolan was the eldest grandson in a family of 9 children. Mary Fran was one of 9. And I tell you that because in the 6 days between when the accident happened and when he made his transition, all the family members had a chance to gather and do support for him in the hospital. So it was uncles and aunts and brothers and sisters and cousins and friends and my family, and there was just a whole raft of people that had come and were lending support to Nolan and doing vigil for him. He was in a coma, but we know enough about comas that they probably hear everything. So we were very cognizant of that, and spoke to him and read stories to him and that kind of thing. Well, it got to be real early in the morning on the 6th day, and a nurse came into the waiting room and told us that the time was near and that we should go into the hospital room. So I need you to picture this, because it's a small hospital room, and it's filled with all kinds of monitors that take up space, and wherever you are in the room you can see what was going on with Nolan. And for whatever reason, I was one of the last people to enter the room, and so there's probably 40 or 50 people in the room, and it's 6 deep around the bed. And so Willie and I, Mary Fran's youngest brother, wound up sitting on the windowsill, and what do? You just wait. And it was kind of quiet, and people were kind of murmuring some prayers, and you could just watch the EEG and the heart rate. And eventually it slowed way down, and he flatlined. And the moment that he flatlined, what I experienced was that Mary Fran, who had died 6 days before, came into the room and went to Nolan and scooped him up out of his physical body. And there was this exquisite reunion between mother and child. And all I could do was to be in awe of the amount of love and caring and welcome home. And then the two of them turned to me and embraced me, and then the 3 of us went to the light. And I entered into a space that is beyond words. It was this exquisite place of knowing and understanding and joy and ecstasy almost. And then that's when I realized that I bilocated. I was fully present in the room with all the other relatives, and I was present with them in the light. And I know this because I knew that I was entirely inappropriate for the other relatives in the room, because I was so happy, so in awe and wonder over what was the space I was in, and the fact that we could be together and have this expression of love between us and with the universe, that my face had to be lit up, and I had this wonderful, I almost felt like it would break. I was just so happy, so I covered my hands. I put my hands over my face, and so that I would not be inappropriate to the other grieving relatives that were in the room. Because, just minutes before, they'd lost their nephew or their cousin or their friend and neighbor. And so there was, crying and weeping in the room, and I'm just happy. So after a time, and I really don't have a sense of what that means, it could have been 2 minutes, it could have been 10 minutes, I don't really have an idea about that. They left and continued on, and I came back to my physical body and was in that hospital room not knowing what had just happened. I grew up in Mankato, Minnesota, which is a small town in southern Minnesota, about 30,000, and grew up in a Presbyterian tradition, and we really don't talk much about out of body and having being in two places at one time, and at the very moment of your largest grief, you are so happy that you can't even contain it. And so I just didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody for 15 years.